You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Force 13 Live, we are looking at lots of different systems that are active around the world tonight. You must forgive me at the start of this hour because we've been throwing everything together in an extremely rapid rate in the last 2 hours, so this live stream might have a few little gaps here and there, but hopefully our commentary will make up for that. The main feature is Hurricane Humberto. That is a significant hurricane out in the Atlantic heading towards Bermuda. That's why we're talking about that first tonight. Hurricane warnings in effect there. Tropical Storm Imelda formed earlier today and made landfall along the coast of Texas. Tropical Storms Lorena and Mario have both formed in the eastern Pacific today. Lorena is a threat to Mexico. Tropical storm warnings in effect for the western coast of that country. And Hurricane Kiko is still out there. I think it's still a hurricane. It might have weakened further since then. But my name's Nathan Foy, and let's talk to the team consisting of Isaac, David, Brian, and Strat. Good evening to you all.
Good evening.
So there's loads of things that we are going to be talking about tonight. Humberto is the only one I've really managed to gather graphics on. Did a few for Imelda as well. But, well, to complement that a little bit, we've got Isaac's webcam out of Corpus Christi.
Yep.
Which is where you are. And, I mean, Imelda's quite a little distance from you, and it isn't the largest storm in the world. Have you seen any effects over there?
Yeah, you see some rain bands. I mean, not rain bands. Outer cloud bands. Out over there. I'm facing towards the north here, so I'm able to see some of the outer bands coming kind of out of here, but not any rain bands, just clouds. And you can kind of make out a few there out in the distance, but other than that, just seeing some adverse effects, maybe some increased rip current risks, and that's about it here. Over in Houston, though, it's a different story.
Right, we'll get on to that shortly. Now, a tropical storm warning is in effect for Sargent to Port Bolivar in Texas. And we're expecting potential rainfall amounts, even in the Houston area, up to about 8 inches. So that could be a significant rainmaker. Isaac, what is the situation over there with regards to rainfall, and would it be welcome, or could it be a big flooding threat here?
It's going to be a big flooding threat, unfortunately. They're expecting, the National Weather Service, at least last I heard, Houston's expecting rain totals up to about 10 inches or so, with isolated amounts even potentially higher than that. Although they were in kind of like a dry environment beforehand, but they certainly don't need this amount of rain in this sort of a time span. So unfortunately, we're going to see perhaps some flash flooding occurring, maybe some river flooding, and stuff of the sort like that. So they're just getting some heavy amounts of rain from that storm.
Here is some imagery of Tropical Storm Imelda this evening. There it is. It is quite clearly inland at this point. The center of the system would be only a few dozen miles away from Houston, right?
Yeah, not that far away. It's actually... Let me see if I could actually get a measurement on that really quick here. In the meantime, we can keep talking about it.
Not very far away at any rate. Strat, any thoughts tonight? There's lots of things to cover, so whichever one takes your fancy.
I mean, the most immediate threat to land for the Atlantic Imelda, already inland. We can say, fortunately, that it developed so close to land that it didn't really have time to intensify. I will say it was a bit unexpected, though, for a lot of people that it actually did manage to develop. What is it, this morning they were running with 30% chance for development on it, and then within the last few hours running up to landfall, rapidly organized a closed center. People were starting to talk about it. along the social mediums, looking at it on radar and other imagery showing that close center, and the NHC comes out with that special advisory at 12 p.m. saying, "Oh, we have a tropical depression here." 12 p.m. Central, I think, so it was 1 p.m. Eastern. And then less than an hour later, I think it was 30 minutes later, they upgraded to a tropical storm with that new information. And then less than an hour and a half after that, they said it made landfall. So it was a really rapidly developing situation that we saw earlier today.
Certainly was.
Yep, we're also joined by Ryan at this hour as well. Ryan, Imelda came out of nowhere, or were you expecting it? If he's ready at this point, I'm not sure. I thought he lit up for me. Okay, we're not getting any output from you, Ryan, at this point. And we're also joined here by David. You're running our Facebook stream tonight, live with us too, aren't you?
Yes, we are live on the Facebook page, and any questions I'll keep an eye out for.
All right, well, yeah, you can send in any questions to the team live whilst we continue to track these storms. We're going to be running commentary here for the hour up until that would be 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And then we'll see where we're at by that point and whether we'll continue to leave all of these graphics up or not. But two major systems at this point. Let's just now go to the all the automated graphics that complement our stream every so often. Let me just take this imagery off again so we can go through absolutely everything that's going on right now. Hopefully all of these images load correctly. Half of those haven't. There's some Humberto images. They're just loading up on the screen at this point, so we'll come back to all of the imagery in just a moment. Let's first go to the most important news, which is the National Hurricane Center forecasts. This is for Humberto. This was as of the 5 p.m. advisory, winds of 105 miles per hour. That's a mid-range category 2, and they are expecting it to become a major hurricane. Am I right in saying that they at one point ditched the idea that it would become a major, but now they've put it back on again?
Yes.
Yeah.
This morning they said it was going to peak as...
And on Bermuda, stage 4 conditions expected on the CDPS, even if it doesn't make landfall. So that is rather significant. Hurricane warning in effect. From what I've seen on the models, it's going to be very borderline whether Bermuda gets hurricane conditions or not. The hurricane threshold will pass literally along the island. But thankfully, with the storm moving already at 12 miles per hour, it should accelerate a little bit more when it passes Bermuda. It should be moving rather quickly, unlike the fate that we saw in the Bahamas 2 weeks ago. And then it will shoot off northeast. Won't actually be moving that quickly because there's a little bit more uncertainty as it gets up towards Atlantic Canada. It won't hit those islands again, I don't think, the Canadian coasts. But then eventually it will hang around just a little bit and then by the weekend turn post-tropical and head off across the North Atlantic. This here is Tropical Storm Imelda, the last National Hurricane Center update there. 40 mile per hour winds, moving inland. From what I saw, some people have been surprised that this system is still doing so well as it's moved inland, but let's not forget, this is the coast of Texas, and we've seen several times in the past that systems do not only survive, but can, they can do pretty well even after they've moved inland in this part of the world. It doesn't surprise me to see that it's holding its own at this point.
Yeah,
No, it's definitely maintaining itself.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I would definitely expect it to maintain its intensity, especially given the storm's nature.
Yeah, but now that it's inland, though, you're going to see the part that's over water still flare some more convection. But as it slowly moves inland, you see it's showing the points that it's still going to be in Texas even 2 days from now. You're just going to start to see it slowly wind down as we keep going. And once all the convection's fully inland for the most part, it's just going to gradually fade away into just a remnant low. People are probably getting swept up by a trough eventually.
If anyone wants to bring up radar on the screen as well, that would really help me out here. As we move on to imagery, the forecast map for Tropical Storm Lorena, which is off the coast of Mexico. A tropical storm warning is in effect there as well for a large part of the coast there. It was initially a tropical storm watch, but it's now a tropical storm warning for Zihuatanejo to Cabo Corrientes along the coast of Mexico. Tropical storm force winds extending out 70 miles and could be a threat further north as well. This is Tropical Depression 10, which I think is what most of the community is more interested in, to be quite honest. Because it's expected to become a hurricane as it passes the Lesser Antilles, and again, some of the Bahamas are already in the 5-day cone. Does anyone want to offer their thoughts here on Tropical Depression 10?
I think the interesting.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Tropical Depression 10, expected to move off towards the northwest, could become a hurricane. I'd say it's pretty likely, given the time of year, and I mean, this is looking like could be a big storm. Just, not saying that it's going to be a Dorian or anything by any stretch, but,
Let's just not do these comparisons tonight, okay?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say something interesting to note. Those some of the major models that we use to see what potential tracks a storm could take aren't really trustworthy right now, because especially the GFS and European, because they hardly have it as a developed system. Some of them don't have it closed yet, so it isn't able to properly initialize a track forecast because of that. And if I were able to show the European, I'd show this part in particular.
Could do that shortly.
It doesn't start with it as a system, and it keeps it extremely weak despite it being in probably favorable conditions throughout, is what the general forecast says. The GFS does something very similar, where it doesn't have it really existing until it gets into the central Atlantic between the Bahamas and Bermuda. So that's why I think looking at the HRF has some merit, but it's also very startling because of what it kind of pulls comparatively to the other models that develops it as a hurricane through parts of the Lesser Antilles, and then into a major hurricane approaching Puerto Rico and Hispaniola, going south of both of them as a small system, is at least what this model says. Yeah, that's the 12Z.
For pity's
I'm not
sake,
sure what the HMON is saying, though.
Anyway, hey, I just want to point out as well regarding Dorian. Force 13 is producing a hour-long documentary on how we tracked Hurricane Dorian, and that's going to be released on Friday night, so we're really looking forward to showcasing that one as well. It's, I think, a very thought-provoking little piece on Dorian's coverage. Moving on, here's some models for Humberto. Well, that's not looking very good. Just to point out, Kiko and Mario both going to be moving out at sea, so that's why we haven't included it here. This is a look at Imelda as well. Rainfall expectations going to the National Hurricane Center. Well, it's actually the Weather Prediction Center, I think. Yeah, 10 inches plus in some parts there, along the coast in particular, but extending inland as well, 6 inches plus, quite far inland, and even up to the top of the state, 1 to 2 inches there as well.
Yeah, I think something very intriguing with the Humberto track forecast, especially with the National Hurricane Center cones, is that a lot of models, and I think you could argue potentially a majority of them, show not just a turn briefly, at least due north, but a hook back to the west a bit before resuming a path eastward. But the National Hurricane Center's official track does not have anything of a full due north movement at any point in time in their cone. Which is an interesting deviation from what we're seeing a lot of the models say.
Alright, here's some satellite imagery. I thought we had the loop working at that point, but clearly not. There is Humberto. Very interesting appearance in this storm. It's sort of like it's a bit like a door handle at the minute. Because you go off to the eastern side, it's got that very long trail extending way off. Hasn't it?
Almost looks like a whistle on the visible imagery if you think of it like that.
Well, get your comparisons in. Oh, there is one of the loops that's working on the top right hand side, the water vapor imagery. Here we go, they're all working again now. So the eye has always been looking very good in Humberto. The cloud tops have been decent. What has been completely confusing with this storm, we thought we were going to get a normal hurricane at last in the Atlantic, which would make a change. But with this one, it for the longest time now, it's looked much stronger than it actually is.
What would Sati say on this system, for example?
Oh, probably Category 4. It isn't.
Which just goes to show how important reconnaissance information can be.
I mean, that's just speculation. I don't know if it actually... But we were getting Category 3 readings yesterday, and it was only a Category 1 at that point. That's why I was very frustrated in the Tropical Weather Bulletin last night. But, you know, recon is better than any satellite estimate, so we run with the recon. I don't know if they've been in the storm lately.
They are.
I think we should
They're
send
in it
some
right
hints.
They're in it.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
we can't go against recon readings because that is more of a direct measurement than anything else we're ever going to get. Being in the storm with instruments is much better than being thousands of miles into space looking down on it.
Yeah, I think we should send a hint to the JTWC.
Oh yeah, well, there appears to be a campaign that's beginning within our community in getting recon back in the Western Pacific. I'm sure we'd all like to see that.
Oh yeah, if it was everywhere in the world, that would be amazing. I mean, forecasts and all that would be so much better.
Here's a look at Imelda on the imagery as well. So, a fairly small system. Most of the rainfall is offshore, but near the center of the storm, it is looking quite profound. But not much beyond that center of circulation. But it is still blowing very close to the center, and I don't have my coordinates with me at this point to find out just how far away the center of the storm is from some population centers. I might be able to get that up in just a couple of moments. Let's just move on for the time being. This is Tropical Depression 10. When do you think this one might get a name?
Whenever they want to name it, I guess. What's the forecast say right now?
Soon.
It says within
12 hours?
the next 12 hours.
Okay, my guess is going to be next advisory.
Yeah, ASCAT keeps missing it though, so
Well,
Yeah,
there's been
that's
numerous
the
people
problem.
frustrated about
so they're
that.
going to struggle with that. Yeah, well, if we're going off satellite alone, which they'll probably have to for the 11 p.m. advisory, then it looks like it's going to remain a tropical depression until morning.
Yeah, and I mean, it isn't forecast directly to impact land within the next 2.5 days, so I don't think we need to worry about any intensity errors by 5 miles an hour right now.
Of course.
But a lot of the Lesser Antilles, or at least the northernmost ones, and part of the Greater Antilles, northern tips of the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and parts of the Dominican Republic are in the cone, as well as when you get to the Turks and Caicos and parts of the southern Bahamas. So concerning to say the least. Again, in 2 days from now, we might get a better picture of what potential impacts could be for the Bahamas. We obviously have to monitor that very closely, considering the absolutely terrible situation that's unfolded there recently, and any further impacts could significantly hamper recovery efforts.
Here's a look at Kiko at this point, looking terrible. Not very good at all, just blowing up a bit more convection, shrinking, it's shriveling up. But some models think that it will survive, it will be a survivor for the next few days, and National Hurricane Center now hopping aboard with that as well. And some GFS models in the last day have had some remarkable scenarios. Dissipation, although its remnants survive, and then regeneration and lasting until the first days of October. Okay, well, we'll see what happens with that. Here's
I think the current...
Lorena?
I was going to say, I think the current forecast calls for it to re-strengthen into a hurricane, weaken to a tropical storm again, and then become a hurricane again at the end.
Here's a look at Lorena at this point, producing a little bit of thunderstorm activity along the coast of Mexico. Not much just yet, but things will deteriorate along the coast, especially in that tropical storm warning area. We don't have Mario. Well, you can sort of see the edge of Mario on Lorena's imagery on the left-hand side. It isn't looking very good. and people are memeing that one to hell. And Invest 91C, which was looking decent, but those latest images aren't very convincing. So we'll see where we end up with that one. But the tropics are open for business at the moment. Very active.
Yep, we got 6 storms active, I think, across the world, right? Well, 5, but 1 depression as well. And then
Yes.
numerous other disturbances besides that.
If you take a look at a world map, a world view, you'll see a whole line of tropical disturbances lining up all the way from India eastward through the Philippines, through the Western Pacific, through the Eastern Pacific, through the Atlantic, all the way into the middle of Africa.
Yeah, 'cause what is it? Some models are developing a Central Pacific storm that's given 50% chance by the CPHC right now. A Western Pacific storm is expected to develop and impact Japan and potentially Korea. Then
Really?
there's the models that are developing an Indian Ocean storm, potentially taking it to Oman down the line.
I thought the models had given up on the Western Pacific.
No. Surprisingly.
Alright. It's hard to keep track of
The GFS and European both developed this storm and have it impact Japan. And then you have some of the models trying to develop things in the Indian Ocean too. So we're looking at a pretty hectic situation that's unfolding right now.
Just the latest position estimate on Imelda. It's about 16 miles from the middle of Houston, so there could be some significant rain falling over there right now.
Nathan, I have a question from Facebook from
Yeah.
Jomar. Will the systems in the Eastern Caribbean develop in the Central Western Caribbean?
I don't think we've seen anything. There was a disturbance that was moving through the Lesser Antilles last night. Is that what we're referring to here?
I think that's the one that Jomar's referring to.
I don't think there's anything on the horizon for that one.
Yeah, not anytime soon at least.
And we will take your questions from YouTube as well, because there is a lot coming in, and I did say I would read some out, so let's just see if we can get through some right now. This is a great first question. Will Humberto hook back like Sandy? Wonderful. That's a great start.
No.
Definitely
No.
not. Although, earlier models were sort of, there's some
No.
outliers.
That was 4 days ago, okay?
4 days ago.
I mean, there's a slight concern for Atlantic Canada possibly at this point in time. If you look at the GFS in particular, what it does is it pushes this area of high pressure over the system directly.
Half the time, it's those high
directly
pressures
to the
that are the
north of it.
problem with these things.
Yeah, it puts this high pressure directly over it, and then moves over to the east, and it kind of contributes to pushing it to the west a bit. And then there's another area of high pressure to the east of it that tries to go over it, but at least in the GFS run, the storm's able to find a weakness and escape through them both, and that's how it gets out to sea. I feel like that's what a lot of the models have been moving out to sea fully have been doing. So you're gonna have to keep track and see how that continues to develop. Some concern for Atlantic Canada potentially if things shift further north because of this.
Another question, could Kiko threaten Hawaii? I haven't seen anything indicate on the models to that effect. It's just mainly going to hang around the western part of the East Pacific, if that makes any sense. I don't see much mileage in terms of, even if it does last a long time, it's not actually going to travel very far. From what we've seen, at least, and I don't know if anyone wants to bring models up shortly as well. Some more questions here. Alright, this seems quite hypothetical. Could a subtropical storm form north of latitude 35 north in the eastern Pacific? Well, it's not going to happen right now, but I wouldn't put it past that happening at some point in future anywhere. Just going to have the right conditions. And some tropical storms have lasted that far north. Very few, only 1 or 2, but it does sometimes happen. Let's see, what are the chances that 10L will impact the Bahamas? Well, if you're saying the Bahamas is a broad question, there are a lot of those islands. Some of those southernmost parts of the Bahamas are in the cone. So yeah, if you're just saying that, then that's a very decent chance that some of them will be affected. If you're talking about the places that were ravaged by Hurricane Dorian, then we're going to have to wait and see on that, but it would be trending towards no at this point.
Yeah, looks like it might. I would think. Again, it's way too early to tell. I think it's like a week out by its closest approach to the Abaco Islands and Grand Bahama that were devastated by Dorian. Yeah, it's just too early to tell, but I don't think it's going to happen. Looking at the NHC cone, it might, it could. I'm just saying it could, although I think it's unlikely.
Alright, I'm just going to try and get here some water vapor imagery of Imelda at this point, so you can see maybe a little bit better clarity, the rainfall distribution in relation to Texas there, as I continue to go through some questions. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I think Recon just passed through Humberto, or it's about to. I think Isaac wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, Recon just went through Humberto right now. It's in the eye wall. It's not in the eye just quite yet. Wait another 5 or 10 minutes for that data to come in, but Recon found unflagged estimated surface ratings up to 94 knots in his newest Recon pack.
94 knots.
Yeah, 94 knots.
I'm looking at some of the data that came in. Looks like in the eye wall before passing the eye, we don't have the full pass yet. There's at least a 1 non-contaminant SFMR up to 100 knots. Interestingly, there's 4 separate peak winds intensities for it in this segment of the eye wall. There's 4 separate wind peaks. So I don't know if that's weakness in the eye wall in general, or if there's an eye wall replacement cycle possibly already happening.
Certainly not a sign of particularly well organization. Isaac, I did ask for radar ages ago, and we've been carried away for a long time. We got it on your screen now. Well, we were just then. There it is. What are we looking at here?
Stuff. No, we're seeing. This is the center of Imelda right here. As you can see, I calculated the distance earlier, and it was about roughly 23 miles or so from downtown Houston, and it's about that same distance still right now. You can see where the center of the storm quite clearly is, and you can see it's delivering copious amounts of rain to Webster, Lake City, Dickinson, Texas City, Ingleton, Alvin, Texas, and all those places in the Houston, southern Houston, Galveston areas of Texas there.
What's the nearest town to the center of the storm there?
Nearest town will be about Iowa Colony, which is right over where looks like probably the strongest winds would be Iowa Colony, Texas. I'm assuming it's a small town, a small text on a map, but it's over there by the looks of it at this point in time. It passed over Alvin a few hours ago.
Fascinating.
Copious amounts of rain to Texas.
Fascinating. David, you've also got this graphic up right now as well, showing us some more radar imagery, but I did note that you had the warnings up a few moments ago.
Yes, I did. Hang on, I'll just see if I can bring them up again.
And this is a very useful web page that I keep forgetting about. But
there it is.
I can tell you that there are flood warnings and flash flood watches in effect. Flood warning continuing in Louisiana, actually. Calcasieu River at Old Town Bay. And a flash flood watch for large parts of southeastern Texas at this point. That's from now through Wednesday afternoon. Again, 10 inches of rain are possible in some of these areas underneath Tropical Storm Imelda right now. So we are covering storms on 3 fronts tonight. Imelda, which has made landfall in Texas today. If you haven't been around, then it may be a shock to you that we have 3 more storms today than we had yesterday. And 1 tropical depression as well, just in case that wasn't enough for you. Yeah,
I mean, it's quite incredible, I have to say. I don't think I've ever seen 4 tropical cyclones form within a few hours' time.
A question here: will the position and the state of Humberto largely affect Tropical Depression 10? What do we think?
Wait, what are they asking?
Will the track of Tropical Depression 10 be affected by Humberto? I don't think so.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, there's quite a bit of distance between the two systems.
Yep. I was just okay. We've had a lot more questions than I expected there. That's where we're up to. Loads to get through here. Could Imelda be like Allison? Well, I know people are so quick to make comparisons. I mean, yeah, sure, I get it. It's sort of like Allison. I don't see it personally. It's not going to go and turn round, we don't think. Models have it continuing north.
It's a lot weaker than Allison was, and not to mention that Allison kind of stalled around and meandered for a few more days than this is going to be doing.
Yeah,
So,
and
just interesting notes.
and the rainfall. I believe how much rain is expected in Texas? Like 10, 15 inches?
Isolated part. Well, for the most part, in Southern Houston, southern downtown Houston, they're expecting from Houston to about Pasadena, Texas, they're expecting about 10 inches of rain, but isolated amounts higher than that are definitely possible with the storm. They're saying.
I mean, yeah, Allison was like 4 feet of rain or something like that. Yeah, this is going to be nowhere near that.
People are asking about what's the CDPS for Imelda. I haven't actually looked at that piece of data yet because I had 2 hours to start this stream from scratch, and that included a few of the new graphics that we're using for the first time at the bottom of our screen. So I had to get all of that ready, and I just haven't had time to do half of the prep needed. It would have taken probably 4 hours to prepare tonight's stream. But the CDPS, I would say, is probably borderline stage 2.
I just want to quickly go back on. I want to quickly go back on Humberto for a second because Recon just went through the eye and they recorded a minimum low pressure of 950.9 millibars. 950.9 millibars, and they found estimated surface winds as high as 98 knots in it so far.
Well, that is pretty big.
So I just wanted to relay that information really quick.
That's pretty big. You could be looking there towards high-end Category 2 status then.
Yeah, I think 110 is pretty
Well, then
safe
again,
to
it
say.
already was 105, I suppose, but 950 from 960 just now.
Yeah, they got down to 950.9 on 2 different occasions by the looks of it on their
Really?
51.
Yeah.
Wow.
And both of those readings were 950.9.
That's
And
impressive.
there's a lot of 951 readings as well too.
And how fast did Imelda go from being an invest to a tropical storm?
I think about 12 hours maybe.
Quick.
Well, going back through
Maybe
the
less.
timeline here, I think it was designated as a tropical depression at like 12 p.m. and
So
then
at
45 minutes.
11:59, it was an invest, and at 12:45, it was a tropical storm.
Yeah, so it was only a couple hours.
Less than
Not
12
even
hours.
one. Not even one. 46 minutes, technically.
Yeah.
Totally. That is that must be the quickest. I mean, that's baffling. Some people were saying that it would I think it was you, Ryan, was it? That it could be the shortest lived tropical storm?
Yeah, that would be if it had gone back down to TD at the 4 p.m. advisory. It would have Imelda would have only been a tropical storm for 3 hours, which would break the previous record, which is 6 hours, which has been set by a few storms, mostly Chris of 2000 and Philippe of 2017 are the ones that I know of. But yeah, but it didn't do that, so it is going to be a tropical storm for a little bit longer, but yeah, it is. I thought it had a decent chance of not only becoming, it wouldn't have even produced any ace at all, which would like break the ace system almost.
Totally. Some people are inquiring about how to get involved with our work. The best way to do that is either by sending an email to contact@force13.com or by joining our Discord server, which anyone can do. The link is underneath the stream right now, and under all of our videos you'll see the Discord link, and then you can get in touch with us and see where it goes. But that is where we continue to have a growing community on there as well, full of people who talk about these storms day and night, whether we're live or not. What do we think of... Well, I'm not going to name it prematurely because that's a bad thing to do. They called it the next name on the list, but 10L hitting Florida in a similar way that Matthew or Irma did. Doesn't look like it.
Ooh, that's too far out to say, but I wouldn't think so.
I know we've been wrong before. Are we just do we have to be extremely cautious? Well, it could hit Panama.
It's not. It's a very uncertain answer. It's not going to hit Panama, please. No.
Sorry about that.
No.
There is TD10. That's the only one that's got Imagery on that new page. All right. Let's get back to normalcy with some more questions here as well. I'm seeing lots of questions coming in there. Model runs. Is anyone able to show us model runs at this point?
Is David still here?
There's a lot of things that's going on at the moment, but
Yeah, I'm still here.
we'll try and cater to that where we can at some point. And more questions here regarding 10L. Could it become a Category 5 or a major hurricane? Is a question
Way too early to say.
we've received
Way too early to say.
I'm sorry, we must sound really boring saying that, but that's just how it is. It is...
It's way too early to say. We don't know. I don't know what it's going to peak at. I think, at the very minimum, it's probably going to be a hurricane. I would think that I think a hurricane's pretty likely, but anything past that, like Category 2, where in the hurricane area, I don't know. I have no idea.
There it is. That's what most people are interested by. That tropical cyclone, tropical depression 10. That's most people that aren't already getting hit by tropical cyclones. Of course, hurricane warnings are now in effect for Bermuda. When was the last time we would have seen hurricane warnings in Bermuda? Would that have been Gonzalo?
Probably Gonzalo.
No, Leslie.
What about Nicole?
Not Leslie.
Oh, Nicole.
What about
I
Nicole?
get those names mixed up,
Nicole.
Nicole and Leslie. I was going to say Nicole.
Yeah, Nicole.
And before that, Gonzalo.
And then, yeah. Because Nicole went, like, right over as a Cat
It did.
3.
It
Or
did, it
very
did.
pretty close. Yeah.
The eyewall did. I don't think it made a complete landfall, but the eyewall certainly did.
And of course, you've got Lorena as well in the Eastern Pacific, which could impact the western coast of Mexico Wednesday, Thursday. That's one to watch as well along that coastal region. I'm sure that our Mexican member Cesar will be providing updates in Spanish on the channel during the next few days as well. But we'll leave that graphic up on the screen again, or actually let's just let's go over to David, who's showing us some model runs.
HWRF on Humberto. So
Okay.
that's the HWRF one.
I'll be able to get all the HWRF ones up at this point.
Alright, well, we'll go to...
So this is what people have been
BFF?
talking about. Hold on. This is what people have been talking... No, not that one. Regarding 10L. The HWRF wants a high-end Category 4 to pass just south of Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic in 4 or 5 days' time. Well, that is one point of view. It's well outside the NHC cone.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
And you can see just how much of an outlier it is there as well compared to those other models. The HMON even, usually they go hand in hand together sometimes. The HMON only having a tropical storm, actually a hurricane in the next 2 days before weakening back to tropical storm as it passes the Lesser Antilles. Further north, you've got, what are we looking at there? GV14, I'm not sure what that one is, and the GFS, otherwise known as AVNO, the blue line, which is further north, and I assume a stronger system, but this model is showing it as a depression the whole time because the GFS never does intensities correctly. David?
That's a GFS model.
Yep. And you could see TD10 going by there. Let's also bring to you... No, let's not bring to you that. That looks terrible. I'm just trying to get some more HWRF models up. Well, basically, there's nothing much to see anywhere else apart from one extremely strange thing that appears to me. This is Kiko's forecast on the HWRF. Becomes a hurricane in the next 12 hours, dips towards the southwest, weakens again to tropical storm, then becomes a hurricane again as it moves northwest a little bit, then dives southwest, loses hurricane status briefly, and then becomes a category 3 as it descends below 15 degrees north, moving southwest in a straight line. That is one of the weirdest model runs I've ever seen in the Eastern Pacific.
Wow. Yeah, that's very interesting.
And let's just see if we can get a few of those models. Yep, they're all a bit confused. HMON also, that's probably actually even more interesting than the HW. Let me just click on this button here. Get us to the HMON screen. Hold on, just trying to get through this because this is just the wind swath on that. So HMON is even crazier with Kiko and has a category 4 moving southwest. Alright, well, that would be something very interesting to watch and thankfully remaining out to sea. Just thought I'd bring that to everyone's attention. Back to latest imagery, and this really is latest imagery. The last image on this screen is just over 2 minutes old. This is Tropical Storm Imelda, which is continuing at this point to move inland over Texas. You can see slowly, I mean this is only about 25 minutes of imagery that we look at on this screen. So in 25 minutes it's moved north just a little bit, and it will continue to do that. Alright, really trying to catch up with some questions here because that's what we're here for during this hour of discussion. How busy will this hurricane season be after September? Would anyone like to speculate on that?
I don't know. I mean, really, I mean, you're mostly, I guess, asking about October activity, and, I guess, I don't know. It's just going to have to be one of those things where you just wait and see what happens. I mean, I hate to tell you that, but...
We're getting closer to that point already. I mean, the Eastern Pacific has really woken up this September. That must be... What we're seeing right now must be the peak this year in the Eastern Pacific, right?
Well, I guess. Well, here's the thing. The interesting thing about the Eastern Pacific that I found. I found that the Eastern Pacific mostly like plateaus more than actually peaks. It just like plateaus like from like July through September. So yeah, it's very possible that this is the peak of the Eastern Pacific.
And I've just had a thought here as well. If 10L forms in the Atlantic, it becomes a named storm, and Imelda's still active, is that the first time this year we've had 3 storms active?
I don't think so, because we had Dorian, Fernan, and Gabrielle all at the same time.
Was that at the same time?
Yes, yeah.
That all blends into one for me, all of that.
Yeah, no, I think Fernan and Gabrielle form... on the same day, or might have been within a day, or like Fernan was making landfall in Mexico when Gabrielle formed. I don't remember. I think that there were three. I think Dorian, Fernan, and Gabrielle were all active at the same time.
Now, I heard one or two people earlier today a bit confused and a bit troubled that Lorena might be a little bit low on the forecast, that they weren't expecting it to get close to hurricane status and indeed possibly prompt hurricane watches. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, it definitely does seem like it's pretty close to hurricane status. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it
Well,
peaks.
not right
The NHC
now,
has
no,
it peaking
but...
at. No, not right now, but like the forecast,
Yeah.
definitely 65 miles per hour.
Is that what
we
they're
might
saying
need?
now?
Yeah, 65 miles per hour. They might, and it does have the chance of becoming a hurricane. If I look at the hurricane wind force probabilities here, they're less than 5% on the southwestern coast of Mexico. So I'm not sure if the NHC is really convinced that this has a shot of becoming a hurricane, but I do feel like maybe if it.
We got some
Yeah.
news. Well, Imelda, it didn't last very long. It's now lost tropical storm status. It's down to 35 miles per hour, pressure 1007.
Well, wait a
That was
minute.
quick.
So, well, it did last. No, because it lasted an additional 50. Because the advisory time was 12:45, I think, when they upgraded it, and it's. I'm guessing it's. That this is the intermediate advisory, right?
Yeah, that's just
Okay,
come
so.
out. Also want to point out Lorena is
Yeah.
up to 50 miles per hour.
Yes, it has been for a few
Has it?
hours now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it shows just how far behind we are here. Tropical Depression 10 remains the same. They're not doing an update on that at the intermediate. But Imelda is no longer a tropical storm. That's the breaking news. So that really didn't last very long at all. I'm a bit surprised. It still looks like a tropical storm to me. But there it is. Tropical Depression now. But really, that means very little when we're talking about this potential flood problem in Texas.
Yeah, I mean, but the other thing is why they probably downgraded it to a tropical depression is probably from land observations. They're no longer finding any
All right.
tropical storm force winds occurring
Sure.
over Texas.
Sure. So we'll see what they say for Humberto, because that's going to happen. That update is going to happen very soon as well. So we're going to watch that one very closely. And then I'm afraid we're going to go off the air after that, because we just wanted to bring to you this short bit of coverage and probably get very hard at work in creating actual updates for all of these systems as they continue to progress. It's a crazy situation out there tonight.
Yep. Recon just wanted to shortly mention this. Recon went through the other eye wall, other side of the eye wall of Humberto. Almost forgot the name for a second there. Humberto, and they found estimated surface winds of 81 knots on the southeastern quadrant.
Okay. But we're still looking at pressures in the low 950s.
Yeah.
And there it is.
I was actually
and it looks.
I was
I just want to point out on this imagery. Going more east than expected, is it?
I wouldn't know.
That's bad news for Bermuda, if true.
Much, but I just wanted to mention I was also incorrect because there was actually 3 readings of 950 millibars. There was 2 readings of 950.9, and there was 1 reading of 950.8 millibars in the eye. But anyways, go ahead, guys.
All right, let's see what questions we've got at this point. Let's just see here. Well, that's a remarkable contribution by T.O. Plays 5575 from Texas in the woodlands, starting to get windy and rainy there. And anything that we do receive in terms of pledges, obviously goes back into the work that we do. All of this wouldn't be possible without the community support, and we don't explicitly require all of this, but it certainly helps along the way. But even the support in terms of actually helping us produce our work, and our team do it all the time on this stream tonight and all across our support platforms and on our Discord server as well. It's really helps us get everything together and to produce the best quality coverage. And just a reminder again, Friday night we are producing a documentary feature on how Force 13 tracked Hurricane Dorian, going through a whole hour-long feature on our coverage and how we reacted to it and what a crazy storm that one was as well. Other questions here as well. The chances of Lorena making landfall, I would put that above 50%, would you?
I would say about 40, maybe like 45%. I mean, I think the cone is just a tad bit offshore of the coast.
Interesting. We've seen so many situations where there's been systems that have just really just grazed the coast. I remember it being a distinctly 2013 phenomenon, doing all them tropical weather bulletins that year.
Yeah,
there we go. That updates
I think
new
of
cone there on tropical depression Imelda too as well. So, as is quite clear, the tropical storm warning has been discontinued there along the coast of Texas, as you would expect. But those who aren't familiar, that is what happens by default when the storm weakens to below tropical storm strength. And I'm just seeing loads of other questions going by, all different strands. People asking about our next Guess the Storm game. Well, I don't know. We're going to have to see, but it'll pop up in your notifications somewhere. Hey, we're doing Guess the Storm tonight. But that's not what we're thinking about just at this very moment. And people asking us about whether there are any French speakers on the team as well. We did have Jean-Michel Chung for a while in Mauritius, but we do, in the wintertime in the Northern Hemisphere, Mauritius, we do have a network down there as well. We are partners with Matteo e Cyclo Maurice. There's a lot of French speakers who are on their team as well when we cover the Southern Hemisphere. So in part, yeah, we do. But not really in the Atlantic area. So if you are interested in helping us produce products in French, then maybe that could be something that we do in the future. We do it in Spanish. But there we are. We've only got a few more minutes left here. Another question there, and it's not as crazy as it first sounds. Could Kiko go into October? Well, yeah, it certainly could. From what I saw on those models, not particularly likely. But there is an outside chance that it could last that long.
I don't think so. That's 13 additional days, and it's already been around.
It might die and regenerate. Anyway, I gotta tell you, Hurricane Humberto is a Category 3 major hurricane.
All right, second one of the Atlantic season.
That graphic hasn't updated yet. I haven't had any updated graphics here either, but yeah, Humberto now a major hurricane. What do you think's made them go with that 115 miles per hour, Isaac? Do you think the recon was convincing enough for that?
I would say so. They recorded a pressure down at 951, and that's pretty low for Cat 2.
So what we're really seeing here is that the storm's intensity is finally getting more in line with its satellite appearance. Ironically, as we say that, I don't think it looks quite as good on the latest satellite images. I know. I just don't. Well. The convection doesn't look quite as good in those latest satellite images, especially the northern side. So, will we ever get a normal storm in the Atlantic this year that goes exactly how we expect? Well, I suppose
how we expect.
I don't know. Have
You're
we
always
had,
gonna
have
be
we had
in
even
for-
one yet?
Well, let's think here. I would say. I'm trying to
Barry
think.
was the worst
Maybe-
looking hurricane since 1997. Or
What about
98.
Chantal?
Chantal? I mean, I don't know what to say about Chantal.
Aaron? Aaron was pretty normal.
I
And
guess, but we were
Gabrielle.
too busy doing other things. And Gabrielle,
Actually, no, Gabrielle.
No, Gabrielle had a sensor
no.
relocation. It does happen quite often, but it's still not a particularly normal thing for the
No,
storms
no.
to do. Dorian, of course,
Gabrielle-
wasn't normal at all. Humberto has constantly been weaker than we thought, and is now potentially stronger than we thought, looking at satellite. I don't know yet. But this has just been a ridiculous season in the Atlantic so far. Joking aside,
Yeah.
it's been awful as well.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah. Well, of course, it's hurricane season. You're gonna have destructive storms either way.
I mean, you know, we look back through. I mean, you know, I do the history a lot, and I look back through some of the really old hurricanes, and you fear for some of them islands sometimes, especially the Lesser Antilles, because you look back in history and they had much less people at the time, so it didn't really have as much of an impact. But in years gone by, 17th, 18th, even 19th centuries, there was just times where there was a relentless charge of strong hurricanes that moved through a lot of those Caribbean islands.
Yeah, I mean, the
And
scary
they've
thing
been-
is, it's just
They've been pretty
lack of
well
impact.
off until recent years.
yeah. It seems like with Irma and Dorian, it's like no, they're like really starting to get some powerful storms all of a sudden. Wasn't Irma like the strongest storm on record in Lesser Antilles since like 1825 or
Sorry, what
since
was
the
that?
Great Hurricane actually?
Say again?
Irma.
Yeah, no, it beat that one. The previous record was the hurricane of 1825, which had a pressure of 918 on the island of Guadeloupe.
Oh yeah, okay. And then I guess the Great Hurricane of 1780.
Well, we don't know the pressure of that one.
But yeah, no one knows, you know, anything about that besides that it was the deadliest storm in Atlantic Basin history.
There's
Yeah,
a
it
question
was-
there. Could we show model runs on the Invest in the Indian Ocean? And would we agree that this is one of the weirdest live event updates that we've done so far? You'd have to define weird to us. The storms themselves out there have been very weird. I don't believe there is an Indian Ocean Invest, though. There might be an area of disturbance that might become an Invest at some point. I'm going to try and get a global view up before we finish up here. See if we can see what's out there. And we can't because that's broken. So I'm going to try and go to another source. Just doing this candidly right now, trying to get something up for you to show you what the Indian Ocean's looking like as a whole. I'm not seeing much out there, I've got to say. So I don't know really what you're referring to. That is a little look at the Indian Ocean right now. There's some thunderstorms blowing up over India. The Bay of Bengal is looking rather quiet. The southern part of the Indian Ocean, very quiet. Just the tropical, the equatorial region got a few flare-ups. I'm not really seeing what you're referring to in that basin, so I can't help much further. But if you missed the breaking news, two lots of breaking news tonight. In fact, there's breaking news everywhere, because if you haven't... Let's try and do a little timeline here. If you haven't been with us today, you've missed a lot, because we have seen the formation of Tropical Storm Mario, Tropical Storm Lorena in the Eastern Pacific, Tropical Storm Imelda off the coast of Texas, and Tropical Depression 10 in the Atlantic. Imelda has since weakened to a depression again, so you've already missed it becoming a tropical storm, and Humberto has just this moment been upgraded to Category 3 status. It's been a breathless live stream. It was breathless trying to get this whole thing arranged tonight, but we're doing our best here, and we'll have several updates again tonight. Any quick word from the team?
Stay safe for those in the Bahamas. In Bermuda.
Bermuda.
And, make sure you take your hurricane precautions already. I know the houses over there are really built to withstand the hurricane, so wish you all guys the best at Bermuda.
Yep. Alright, we'll have regular updates on the Force 13 channel with regular updates on the storms, of course. But in the meantime, we're gonna get going now. What was I going to say? Well, yeah, basically our outlets. You can follow Force 13 on Facebook and Twitter, and of course you can find our YouTube page if you're not there already. I know you've been watching on Facebook as well, but that is where everything's going on. Across all of those platforms, we'll have regular updates from our team, graphics and video. It's the peak season, and this is what we come to expect at this time of year. We just didn't expect it all to happen on the same day. That's it for tonight. We'll see you again soon. Good night.